How many people are at an Odyssey show for the first time tonight? Okay. Very exciting. Every month we do a show on this stage with a different theme. This time we're doing Coming to America with Iskashitaa. I want you to know that every month we make space for people to share their stories and to be heard, to be listened to. Our mission is to build community one story at a time. We have been doing this for 20 years in Tucson, and it's very amazing. And so I just wanted you to know how happy we are to be collaborating with Iskashitaa on this show. And in this case, we were thrilled to make sure that the voices of the refugees and asylum seekers in our community that are connected to Iskashitaa, we need to hear their voices. Odyssey wants to, yes, make sure that Tucson is as friendly and welcoming as it can be for everybody that comes here, right? When we hear each other's voices, we get connected, we understand each other, we build empathy. Odyssey wants Tucson to be that place for all of you. I'm really excited to hear all of the voices in the crowd today, and I'm going to hand it over to Barbara now. Woo!
What an honor to be here today. An African proverb says, "She who does not know where she comes from does not know where she's going." I was once told, and now teach, that refugees do not want pity, but rather desire opportunities, empathy, understanding, and an opportunity to demonstrate their value to this society. They want to share their culture, they want to share their journeys, their stories, they want to share their food, their languages. Refugeeism is not a choice, but rather often a matter of life or death, or a fear of persecution, simply for who one is as a person. Every 5 seconds, a person is forcibly displaced in the globe, either internally or fleeing from their country of origin. There are 120 million displaced persons in the world today, more than ever before. Why Odyssey Storytelling? We both have community integration at our core. We educate, we learn from each other, we share stories upon stories upon stories. Iskashitaa means working cooperatively together, in my mind. The first Somali ethnic group that we worked with some 22 years ago. We've worked with hundreds of Somalis, but that's not all. We've worked with Sudanese, Burundians, Bhutanese, Syrians, Rwandans, Iraqis, Afghans, Congolese, too many to mention, but nearly 70 different ethnic groups have engaged Iskashitaa Refugee Network. Iskashitaa, through volunteering, refugees along caring volunteers, battles social isolation, gives people a sense of place. Thank you. We're going to change the tone a little bit because it's Simba. Simba, I will not lie, we called shortly after his arrival our posh refugee, a true urbanite. This is in contrast to so many African refugees that are warehoused in refugee camps. Let me remind you here that the global average length of stay in a refugee camp today is still 17 years. Simba came as an affirmative asylum seeker because, as an intellectual from his country, he was a target and posed a threat to the government. As such, he is here to change the narrative and common perspective that refugees and immigrants are going to take from the government system rather than strengthen the fabric of our country. I am proud to say Simba serves as a vice chair of the Iskashitaa Board of Directors. He changed his volunteer role from harvester to board member as soon as he could, saying that that board position was more up his alley. Welcome Simba to the stage.
Hello. Hello. Who likes trivia? Yeah. You like trivia? Yeah. Okay. We have some prizes, Iskashitaa goodies for those that get it. All right? All right. Question number 1. Who was the founder of Apple? Steve. Steve Jobs, you get a prize. Give him a big hand. Number 2. Who is the founder of Google? Quiet. Did I hear something? Larry Page. However, he's a co-founder. There's another one called Sergey Brin. She got it? Oh wow, that's amazing. Big round of applause. I knew that one was gonna get it. All right, number 3. This one, if somebody gets this one, I'm gonna give him $20 at the end of the week. Who was the first woman Secretary of State? Louder. All right, give her.
Who said it first?
Now, we have Madeleine Albright as the first woman Secretary of State, and then we have Steve Jobs, then we have Sergey Brin. You might wonder, why those 3 characters? These 3 people share one thing in common. They are all children of refugees. You didn't know that, did you? Now, when you hear in the news, people talking about immigrants and refugees and asylum seekers being a burden onto this great nation, trust me, it's a lie. We come here looking for refuge, safety, and all we want is to participate and contribute to this great nation. Because of Madeleine Albright, she paved the way for Condoleezza Rice, Hillary Clinton, and now maybe the first woman president. It all started with a young girl, refugee, called Madeleine Albright. So next time you welcome a refugee, an asylum seeker, an immigrant, know that the kids, one of them could be the next Steve Jobs, or Madeleine Albright, a great politician, or a great entrepreneur. So we are here to contribute, we are here to build together, we are here to be with one another and have a great life, like all Americans. My name is Simba Rusita. I'm from Burundi. If you try to look it up on the map, good luck. The country is so small that the letters are bigger than the country itself. Burundi is the same size as Pima County. My story begins in 1972, before I was born. It started with my grandfather. He was one of the first governors after we gained our independence. He was one of the first governors of one of the provinces in my country. Unfortunately, he was killed in plain daylight. They cut his head off, and from that day, a genocide began in 1972. For the people that know the history of Burundi, from then on, we started to have issues. We started to have civil wars, genocides, every 10 years, until even now. My mom grew up traumatized, and her family. Eventually, when they grew up, they became involved in the political arena, and they got persecuted in their, they themselves. And we first fled in the 90s, the early 90s. My family went outside Burundi. They spent about 5 to 7 years in the neighboring countries. They came back because they thought things were better. And then they found out things were not better. And then we had to run away again in 2000. My father had many wives. And it's funny how when war breaks out, that the family broke out. The mothers, the wives, each took her cubs. So my mother fled with us. We went to England. And the other mother took her cubs to Belgium. And the other mother took her cubs somewhere else. Unfortunately, since 2000, I haven't seen my brothers and sisters from the other mothers. And I miss them a lot. And then I spent 10 years in Britain. I learned English, I went to college, and then I even got married, had my first kids over there. And then I was an adult. I was like, you know what? I want to go back to my country and contribute. Like every refugee wishes one day to go back to their country. So I decided to take my family back home. There was a new government that promised that things were different. And then when we were there, it looked like things were different. It looked like it was going to be a democratic government, a democratic regime. And for a while, it looked like it was happening. But then later on, they changed. The government changed. In 2015, there was a failed coup. I've been in a country, I feel like, I say, yeah, I'm privileged to have gone through 4 coups d'etats. 2015 was the mother of all failed coups. Because it was a failed coup, the government went on a revenge journey. People fled because actually the government started to kill its own people. That's when my family got persecuted, everybody ran away. Slowly, I found myself the only person left in my family and the two uncles. The last straw, I got a phone call one day, my uncle was killed in front of his house, in front of his children. The other auntie called and said, Simba, it's time that you leave. It was the hardest decision because when I left by myself. I didn't bring my family over. I left my 1-year-old at home. I have 5 children. I left them home. They're still in Burundi right now. And I miss them very much. The last one was 1, and now he's 3. We talk on the phone, and I just can't wait to see him again. So, came to America, and I found safety, I found refuge, I found Iskashitaa Refugee Network, I found a community that loved me. They became everything for me. They gave me a home, they gave me food, they gave me my first bicycle, they helped me to get my first job, they gave me everything. And I love you guys so much, and they are here, most of them. My first impression of Tucson, it was like, this is hot. I mean, I thought Africa was hot, but this is some next level. So when you're hot, the first thing you want to know is, how hot is it? And I asked, and somebody said, it's 100 degrees. I said, what do you mean 100 degrees? That does not exist. 100, you're still alive, it's 100 degrees. You're lying. It's 100 degrees. Look it up. Lo and behold, to find out that you guys have a different way of measuring things. The imperial measurement, I do not understand. And it's like, what does 100 degrees mean? So every time I had to switch it back. And that's the first thing that took me a while to understand about America. The way you measure things. I go to the supermarket. I want to buy milk. Half a gallon. A gallon. What does that mean? How many liters is in here? I go to the pump station, to the gas station. What is this? A gallon. What? Price is based on a gallon. How much is the gallon? Why don't you use liters? I lived in Britain. The English people who invented the imperial measurement do not use it anymore. Why are you still using it? You didn't get the memo or what? I'm driving on Google Maps. It says you're about to, it says 1 mile. What does that mean? You're a mile away. Then it says you are 300 feet away from your destination. You telling me that every American has the same size feet? There's no little people or big people's feet? Why are you using feet? It cannot be correct. So when the government started to go to this revenge journey, they used the police. So while I was in Burundi, every time I saw a police officer, I would just break sweat. I was just panicking for no reason, even if I was in order. And many Africans know this story, that whenever you see the police, because the police oppresses people in those regimes. So I come to America, I see the police, immediately I just turn the other way. I'm not going that way. I see the police this way, I turn the other side. Until one day. Now I get to a point where I'm making some money and I'm like, yo, I've made it. It's time that I buy furniture with my own money. So I go and buy a wardrobe, a cabinet thing. Go buy it to the shop, and then they're so kind. They pack it, they put it in my truck. Oh, you're so kind. They put it in my truck, lay it down, and I'm like, well done. I'm so proud. Oh, I'm just excited. I'm just thinking about the excitement that I'm about to have my first cabinet in my home. I take it to my house. It's 8 p.m. I get home outside my house, and then I realize it is too heavy to carry by myself. There is no one around to help me to carry it. Coming from Africa, you're like, there are no neighbors? Where are my neighbors? I need help. Where there's nobody moving around? Where is everyone? So it's about to rain. And I'm like, this is so bad. I just spent $500 on this piece of furniture that I'm so proud of, and now rain is gonna ruin it. I'm gonna lose out. I'm a Christian. I'm telling you, I stand in the middle of the road, I say, Father God, send me an angel. Literally 1 minute away, I see a police car. I go back on my knees. Father God, I ask you for an angel, not a police officer, to arrest me. He comes around, he parks not far from me, he turns off his lights, and he's just inside the car, doing nothing. In my heart, I'm like, you are desperate, you need to go and approach that man and ask him if he can help you. So I've heard stories about police brutality against black men in this country. I get there, I knock on the door, on the car, and immediately I raise my hands like this. I am unarmed, please, please don't shoot, don't shoot. I just need help. Actually, I started to speak in African. Sir, I am unarmed. Please help me to move that piece of furniture inside so that I make him feel at ease. Because he's gonna feel sorry, because he's like, oh, that's an accent, he must be from outside. Oh, he's all right. He comes out, helps me to take this very heavy furniture and helps me to put it inside my home. After we finish, he's like, "Man, what were you thinking? Next time, order it and they deliver it for you and bring it inside for you." That was a lesson I learned. To conclude, I am so privileged and happy to be in America. I feel safe, and my interactions with everyone in Tucson has been positive. Even with law enforcement has been very positive. And I am here to do everything I can to contribute so that my community can prosper and do better for themselves. Thank you for listening to my story.
Let's have another round of applause for our storytellers. All right, and now we have the spontaneous storyteller. So this is a big deal because our method is not just sticking people on stage. We do believe in the power and beauty and strength and uniqueness of every single story. But occasionally somebody during an Odyssey show says, "I'll tell a little story." And we have a friend of Iskashitaa who has agreed. Her name is Sarah Hirsi, and she's gonna do a 3-minute story. Come on up.
So talk about success stories. Here it is. So Sada, came to the U.S. in 2017. I can't believe that because I feel like I've known her longer. She's one of 40 under 40s. Woohoo! I lost track of how many businesses she owns, and she's a huge resource for many, many refugees and for Iskashitaa as well. Special welcome for Sada Hughes.
Thank you for being here. I know it's Friday evening and there are many places you could have been. My name is Sahra Hirsi from Somalia. I originally grew up in Kenya. Came here 17 years ago. I was 40 under 40, Women of the Year, and I ran a couple small businesses here in Pima County. There were many cultural shocks, but I want to choose one. One of my first assignments was interpretation. I was interpreting for a school district that was deciding to suspend a student for a long time or to expel. And I was advised to interpret everything that everyone said. So at the end, the 4th grade child who was very small, was called to tell his side of the story of what happened. And at the end he said, and this is what I said, "Hey baby, hey baby." I didn't realize that was a song, a rap song. So I continued saying word by word, and everyone stopped. And they were like, "You don't have to interpret that part." And my friend from the school district took me outside and she said, "Do you listen music? Do you know that's a rap song?" And I said, "No, I don't listen music." I was told to interpret everything. So this is the land of opportunity, it's land of dreams. I have been very successful because of the people that mentored me, and we really want to reach out to the community and help as much as we can. I believe if we all reach out to at least one refugee person in Pima County, we'll all be successful together. Thank you.
Isa is our next storyteller. Isa is from my beloved Venezuela. It has fallen from its days of prosperity as an OPEC nation some 24, 25 years ago. Over 6 million refugees and migrants have left Venezuela in recent years. 17 countries host 80% of those refugees and migrants in Latin America, the largest exodus in the Americas to date. Isa escaped with her life, but left so much behind and risked so much. Isa and her partner Fran have temporary protected status as Venezuelans and have applied for asylum, but they've been denied work authorization. Good people like Nancy and John Garcia took them in and have made them family after a stay at Casa Salitas, the Inn Project, and now part of St. Francis in the Foothills United Methodist Church and Iskashitaa are now their families. We're grateful to all the home hosts. Thank you for bringing up home sharing. We're looking for homes that have helped Iskashitaa refugees, asylum seekers, and volunteers for the last decade through home sharing. Please welcome courageous Isa and her American dad, John Garcia, as the interpreter.
Mi nombre es Marbelis Isabel Maluenga Ávila, soy de Venezuela. Mis fallecieron. Mi mamá falleció cuando yo era una niña. Mi papá pues fue asesinado por entes del gobierno. Él era jefe de una institución policial. No estuvo de acuerdo con un preso político llamado Leopoldo López que los tuvieran allí y por ende él los soltó, hizo lo que el gobierno no quería y lo mandaron a matar. Tengo 3 hijas. En el 2017 salí de mi país porque fui secuestrada, torturada por no estar de acuerdo con la ideología política. En mi país era comandante de un cuerpo de bomberos, soy capitán de bomberos, soy técnico en emergencias médicas y prehospitalarias. Fui secuestrada por el gobierno. Diosdado Cabello es el jefe del tren de los soles y pues el que no esté de acuerdo con la ideología política probablemente sufre muchas consecuencias.
My name is Marbelis Isabel Maluenga Ávila. I was born in Venezuela. My parents are both deceased. My father was murdered by government entities called colectivos, who also killed my uncle, who was a commander of police force in Guarico, who were prisoners of the cartel since they had their leader in prison, and killed my uncle in February of 2012. He was one of the police officers who released a politician, as my father released a political prisoner named Leopoldo Lopez in 2019. That is why members of the colectivos were armed civilians and who belonged to cartels in Venezuela and killed on the orders of Nicolas Maduro, president of Venezuela, and Diosdado Cabello, who was the head of the cartel El Tren de los Soles. He's also president of the National Assembly. My 3 daughters and my spouse and me were all living in Venezuela. I worked as a technician in pre-hospital emergency as a brigadier commander firefighter. I left my country due to political ideology since I do not agree with the current regime. He left in 2017 after I was kidnapped and tortured by officials of the same government and belonging to the cartel that killed my uncle in 2012. He was also associated with government groups.
Llegué en julio del 2017 a Colombia, después de haber sido secuestrada, meses después de haber sido secuestrada. Mi esposo y yo estuvimos en Colombia 5 años. En septiembre del 2022 tomamos la decisión de salir de Colombia, puesto de que ganó el actual presidente, Gustavo Petro, y por órdenes de Diosdado Cabello, él estaba enviando venezolanos hacia Venezuela y los estaban haciendo presos políticos.
We were in Colombia for 5 years. My spouse and I arrived in July of 2017, a few months after being kidnapped and tortured. On September 10, 2022, we made a decision to leave Colombia since the current president, Gustavo Petro, was elected, who issued a charge about sending most Venezuelans in Colombia back to Venezuela at the request of Diosdado Cabello. The relationship of Madero Cabello with Petro is that they're good friends. And since Petro was head of the cartel in Colombia, the political prisoners that were identified as Venezuelans were going to be sent back to Venezuela. I only know this from the news, and therefore we made a decision together to leave Colombia, where we had worked in coffee harvesting. We did coffee harvesting for 5 years. As after that, we knew that Petros was returning Venezuelans back to that country. Franklin and I decided to leave Colombia and enter the Darien jungle, where we passed through many countries.
Salimos de Colombia el 10 de septiembre del 2022. Pasamos la selva del Darién, duramos 8 días. Salimos hacia Panamá. Luego pasamos 5 países más. Fue Costa Rica, Panamá, luego Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, y luego México. En México llegamos en octubre del 2023. Ahí mi esposo trabajaba de albañil y yo trabajaba en un hotel como camarera. Luego de 4 meses que duramos allí, salimos en febrero del año 2023 hacia la frontera de México con Estados Unidos. En México estuvimos en Puerto Escondido, en Oaxaca. Cuando decidimos seguir hacia la frontera, llegamos a Ciudad de México y luego fuimos a un lugar llamado Huehuetoca. Ahí está algo que se llama el basurero y tomamos el tren llamado La Bestia. Duramos 4 días en el tren. Llegamos a Ciudad Juárez y allí empezamos a optar por la aplicación Civic One para poder entrar legalmente aquí a Estados Unidos. 15 días y pues tuvimos la cita, entramos aquí a Estados Unidos 23 de marzo del 2023. Tuvimos que viajar de Ciudad Juárez a Nogales y cuando llegamos a Sonora, oficiales de migración nos bajaron de los buses, éramos muchas personas que íbamos allí, nos bajaron de los buses y nos estaban quitando dinero, nos decían que no podíamos continuar, que teníamos que pagarle para poder seguir, pero luego ya gracias a Dios nos dejó ir y pudimos llegar a Nogales.
We departed for the Darien Jungle Pass. It took us 8 days between September 10th on our way to Panama. Upon arriving in Panama, we went through the countries of Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, and finally Mexico. There we arrived on October 10th of 2022 in the city of Puerto Escondido in the state of Oaxaca. We stayed there for 4 months. During that time, I worked as a waitress and my spouse as a bricklayer. Then we decided to continue our journey toward the border of the U.S. We left for Mexico City and from there to a place called the Garbage Dump. That is located in Huehuetoca. From there, we took the train, which is also known as the Beast. It took us 4 days on that journey. We took 2 trains to arrive in Ciudad Juárez. We started applying for the CPVP1 appointment. After 50 days of applying, we finally got an appointment for March of 2023. We had to enter through Nogales. We had to take a bus, which was from Ciudad Juárez to Nogales, and when we arrived in Sonora, an immigration officer stopped us and took $200 per person to let us go on. I was held and then beaten by the officials since we did not have the full amount of money to pay them. After an hour, they finally let us continue to Nogales. He knew we had an appointment, yet he threatened to hold us and would not let us go. We thank God that we were able to leave and arrive in Nogales and be able to enter the U.S.
Los llamamos nuestros padres. Durante meses fui en ese hotel donde fui recibida actualmente. Estoy esperando mi documentación, estamos legal aquí con TPS. pero estamos esperando los documentos de permiso de trabajo. Y también pues el objetivo de nosotros es podernos traer a nuestras hijas. Tenemos estas dos personas que son las personas más maravillosas que nos pudo pasar a nosotros después de tanto. Gracias. En 10 minutos no puedo decirle todo lo que en realidad he pasado, pero por lo menos esto es algo.
They took us in Tucson to Casas Alitas, which is the processing center in Tucson for immigrants. They sent us to the end of southern Arizona. There at the hotel is where we met the best people who helped us, who to this day still are supporters and our friends, Nancy and John Garcia. We call them our parents. For many months, I was a volunteer at the hotel where I was received. I'm currently still waiting for my documentation to work. I'm already legally with TPS status and asylum petition. Our goal is to be able to bring my daughters with us, since my country is still governed by the regime of Nicolas Maduro, and I fear for their safety. We're now accustomed to being in Tucson. At the same time, we're always in contact with our daughters, supporting them and trying to get them here. Over the last 10 minutes, I thank you for all for listening to part of my story. I won't be able to tell you everything that really happens in my country, just part of a bad thing that keeps going on. Thank you.
What she couldn't say in 10 minutes was the elections in Venezuela happened last Sunday. And from many sources, it was not fair and not democratic. So she's been speaking before the media, Univision and Telemundo in the last week, and leading marches in Tucson to help bring attention to the Venezuelan situation. So if you're interested in that, let us know and we'll connect you to Isa and her march for a better Venezuela for tomorrow. Ritchard, gentle Ritchard, was initially housed by one of our long-time Iskashitaa supporters and patron, Dr. King, who has been a gentle force to help many beyond Ritchard. But now we are profoundly honored and thrilled to have had this time with Ritchard, who is now a business owner to help others in Tucson. Ritchard served on the advisory board of Iskashitaa and continues to serve as a pastor in Tucson after decades of years serving people in the country of Uganda. Like Simba, Ritchard was immediately recruited to volunteer just hours after arriving in Tucson to pick fruit. So, if you've heard those stories, they're all true. We'd like to welcome Ritchard Otim to the stage.
Ritchard Otim is my name, and asylum seeker from Uganda. What a great honor and privilege to be able to share my story with you. My story is back and forth, but I'll try to make it as short as possible. Most of our stories are too long, but we try to edit it and make it very short. I like the theme, coming to America. I was wondering whether to come to the stage and say, "Good morning, neighbors!" You know, I'm sure most of you are reminded by the story Coming to America, that movie by Eddie Murphy. My first stepping in America was 1998, July 23rd. I can't forget. Arriving in Houston, Texas, and coming out from a small Uganda and seeing very big buildings, very big cars, and of course, very hot. And I'm like, you know, Uganda is hot, but this is, you know, hotter than Uganda, you know. But anyhow, my first word getting out of the airport was, wow, because everything was different and very big. And I was like, this is too much. I don't like this place. I don't like it because it's too much. This is too much. When I went to the conference the next day, the food was plenty. And they were pouring food. We had just come out of starvation in Uganda, whereby we make use of everything. Even in school, children share even a piece of granuts. You know, you break it for your friend. But here there is plenty. I said, I can't manage being in this country. And I started looking back and thinking, God, you're unfair. How can other people have plenty and some people have nothing? And so I stayed in United States for only 1 month. But before that, one of the things I was mesmerized with was swimming. I went to a swimming pool and kids were floating, they would climb on the board. And I'm like, it's easy. If these kids of 5, 6, 7 years can swim, I can also swim. So I went on the board and jumped into the swimming pool. Now I wanted to raise my head. I couldn't because I was completely down there. And of course, with lifesavers, they jumped in and helped me and said, are you okay? I said, take me out. I want to get out. I want to get out because I was almost encountering death here, you know? So anyhow, I was taken out and they started talking to me and helping me to learn how to swim, but I wasn't interested anymore because I knew I had just survived. So 1 month after going back to Uganda, I then started coming back 14 to 15 times. I would come to represent village to village and, you know, fundraise for them. I would come and go back, you know, speak for them and be able to help them get school fees and supplies. So after some time, things in my country politically were not okay. And since I was working with the youth, the government started thinking I was telling the youth about politics and making them rebel. And then I started receiving very threatening calls and until 2019 on Christmas Day. Usually on Christmas, we as family, we cherish a lot community in Uganda and most of the families. So on Christmas, families come together and we celebrate Christmas together. But this time, this Christmas, I was looking for a way of leaving my country. So on the 25th of December 19, as people are very busy and making arrangements for Christmas, I was looking for a way of leaving my country and coming to this great nation of the United States. So I managed to arrive United States and arrived in Boston. And when I arrived in Boston, I called most of my friends that I had been communicating with, but most of them turned off their phones and I remained just balanced, you know. I was like, what next? What can I do? So I decided to go and sit on the lawn with my purple suitcase packed with the blanket and bed sheets and so on. Like there was nothing, you know, like I would find the things in America. Then a very nicely smart young man comes to me and he started talking to me about where I was going, and if I don't seem to know where I'm going, they would probably deport me back. So he started talking to me and he was so nice, he was really good. But then he started complimenting and talking about my voice, how I have a very nice voice, and how, you know, I remind him of his boyfriend. I say, are you not hitting on me, you know, inside me, you know? And indeed he was hitting on me. And so I say, let's pretend you didn't say it, and, you know, and let's continue. Then I asked him if there's a guest house that he knows where I could go and stay on. Of course, he was offering me his place to go and stay with him. And I'm like, no, I can't go. I need to go get my own place. So he was kind enough to show me a place that I went in and took shelter until the next day. now 26th of December, Boxing Day. And so I called one more friend of mine in Maine. And of course, again, I had always gotten used to coming to America in light clothes because it's warm. And so this time I also came in December in the same clothing. I was shivering and feeling cold and snow everywhere. And now I am getting to a Greyhound heading to Maine, where the head of the cold, cold America. So anyhow, when I reached there, I found a gentleman who was very gracious to me. He said, how can you come to this place cold like this, in those shoes and in that, without even a jacket? He took me and bought for me warm clothes, and after he took me to his home, he said, I can't take you to the shelter right now, but I'm taking you to my house so that you can spend a night, and the next day I can be able to take you to the shelter. So when he took me to his place, I was very comfortable. I enjoyed being in his place, and of course now I was happy. Life came back again. But in the morning when I woke up, everywhere was white, snow. There was no heaps of snow. I was peeping through the window the whole morning, and he told me this is how it is. So how would you have survived in this place in that kind of dressing, That's why you need the warm clothes. So after that, he then took me to the shelter, and when I went to the shelter, I lived in the shelter, but of course it was very hard, not easy, very difficult. Everyone, people, how homeless people can be there, and the smoking, and that kind of thing, and I was with them, but I knew I was safer. Even in the shelter, I was happy and feeling safe compared to where I was coming from, away from cold, threatening calls that were coming, I was being called. So I was comfortable. So after a few months, somebody took me to his home and gave me a bedroom, and I lived in his home until after about 6 months, somebody told me, it's better in Tucson, in Arizona. So on the 20th of June, that was during COVID. It was a center, and you could not greet somebody. You have to greet somebody 6 feet away. And now I am here in Tucson, but it was warm. I'm like, this is a nice place. And so actually, I remember very well, I said, this is like Kenya. It's like Nairobi, And so I was taken to a home of K, as Barbara told you. Dr. K received me with a big hug. And I'm like, what? She's not scared of COVID. She gave me a big hug. And then she said, I volunteer with the Iskashitaa. Tomorrow in the morning, we are going to harvest fruits. I said, fruits? In this hot place? In Tucson? In the desert? Where do you find the fruits? But somehow, in the morning, we went out, and I was surprised at the amount of grapes and fruits, oranges that we harvested. So we did harvest the fruits, and after harvesting the fruits, I was like, really, something can grow in Tucson. Then finally, after a few months, I got my work permit, and I got my first job. When I got my first job, I worked in a sign company, but the first day, I was working very fast, and the guy was telling me, this is not the way they do. You have to go slow, don't work so fast. And so somehow I lifted something I took, and the guy said, son of a bitch. And to me, that was really an abuse, but I'm told it's okay, it's normal. Don't get mad, it's fine. And so somehow I was mad, and I didn't like it. So I worked there for a few months, and I left. Then, with the help of Iskashitaa and a friend, I started my own landscaping company called Rio Vista Landscaping, that I am now working. Barbara and the team, the family in Iskashitaa, have been helping me to market this company. I get work. Even when there is no work, I find work to do. And I know after I leave this place, some of you are going to take my cards and will give me a job. Thank you very much.
go from here? Come join Iskashitaa, help our Iska team. We will continue recording, capturing, relating to each other through our stories. We have a weekly garden art program every Wednesday morning. We share through art and music, spoken word, dance, you name it. If you've got a talent, we want you to share with our group. And if you haven't handed in those one-liners and you want to send it to us, email, it's information@iskashitaa.org, if you can spell it. It's in the program. And thank you so very much for everybody's attention today and these stories that we captured. We want to do this again. Thank you so much.
Okay, everybody, I'm Christina Early, Board Chair, Iskashitaa Refugee Network, and I want to thank Odyssey so much. We have some little goodie bags here for Angela, Steve and Phyllis. And then Barbara's walking back there, then Laura. We have a little Iskashitaa goodie bag for y'all because this has been an amazing event for us. We've learned a lot. We've gotten to share with you some of these beautiful stories, and I hope that you'll go out in the world and you'll tell people what you've witnessed here. If we can change that narrative so people understand that immigrants, asylum seekers, refugees are here to lift up our community, to become a part of our community, and I think it's really important. Thank you.
Okay. There is one more person that wants to come up and say something. Khalifa, where are you? Come. I heard that you wanted to say something. The microphone is going to be yours for a minute or two. 2 minutes. All right. We're not going to set the time.
Bonsoir. Good evening. Je m'appelle Khalifa. My name is Khalifa. Je viens du Tchad. I come from Chad.
J'ai subi beaucoup de...
I myself suffered torture and I was imprisoned a lot.
À cause de mon travail que je fais, je supporte la partie politique.
Because of the work I was doing, and I was helping the opposition party, and the president had been in power for 30 years.
Et puis, nous voulons le changement et on supporte un autre parti.
Because we wanted change, so that's why we supported the opposing party.
À ce moment, ils sont venus, ils ont dit qu'on est en train de travailler la voiture des rebelles et nous avons emprisonné moi et mon père.
So they came to our garage and they said that we were fixing a car that was going to be used by the rebels.
Et nous avons emprisonné.
Then they put us in prison.
La première fois, 3 jours en prison.
First time, 3 days in prison.
Et deuxième fois, nous avons emprisonné, on a fait 2 mois en prison.
Second time, they put us, my father and I, for 2 months in prison.
Et la troisième fois, on a fait 3 mois en prison.
The third time was 3 months in prison.
Et puis, mon père est tombé gravement malade.
My father fell sick.
Il a rendu l'âme.
Then he died.
Et quand mon père était mort, ils sont venus encore, ils m'ont arrêté, ils m'ont emprisonné.
When my dad died, they came and arrested me.
J'ai fait 2 mois en prison.
And I did two months in prison.
Et puis, ils m'ont libéré, ils m'avaient donné une condition. Tout ce qu'ils ont fait pour moi, je peux rien dire à personne.
So they released me by one condition. They said I could not say anything that happened to me.
C'est très lourd pour moi. Et à ce moment que j'ai décidé de quitter le Tchad.
It was very heavy on me, and that's when I decided to leave Chad.
Jusqu'à là, ils sont en train de me chercher au pays, dans la maison de ma famille, de mes amis.
Until now, they are still searching for me in my house back home.
Et tout ça, c'est mon frère là-bas, il m'a dit ça.
And those are the news that I received from my brother.
Bon, c'est très dur pour moi. Et
This is very hard for me.
il y a beaucoup d'histoires, je ne peux pas tout expliquer, ça me fait mal.
It's a long story, it hurts me, and I can't tell you all of it.
Et je demande ici, le gouvernement américain, je demande la protection.
That's why I'm seeking protection from the American government.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
That was a true spontaneous story. We didn't plan that, but it happens during Odyssey story shows. Every intermission, at least one person gets up and tells a story because they were so inspired to see other people on the stage being vulnerable, getting under these lights, telling their really important stories that usually don't get told on a stage like this with a microphone and lights. Thank you, Khalifa, and thank you to my new friends. The reason I love doing story work is every time I work with a group of people, I feel like I have a new family because we worked together preparing for this, but they did the work. And you are doing the work too by showing up and hearing these stories. It has been such an honor and a pleasure. I mean, it's been really amazing and fun, and yeah, lots of tears. I had to cry a lot over the last week or two, so I didn't cry up here. Another tradition that we have with Odyssey, we want to keep these conversations going. We want these relationships to grow from here. We know that most of the people in this room are just going to go away, but I think everybody's going to take a piece of every story with them, and it's going to stay with you forever. But we also invite you to stay around. Again, go help us, buy merchandise, donate. We can all use it. Thank you, everybody.